Good afternoon, guys, and welcome to our live. This week, here at the corner, we did not have, or we're not going to have a webinar tomorrow. We decided to have this live where we're going to talk about the power of communication in healthcare and just how to be heard and also to create impact. My name is Charity Wanyonyi. I'm one of the co-founders of this platform. My other co-founder will be joining us later. And we're not going to take a lot of time while discussing this topic. So if you have any questions, any comments, you can leave them in the comment section. If we find time, we'll be able to respond. Let's make this live very interactive. And just a brief introduction on why we settled on this. On Monday, we had a poll to just ask what you guys would love for us to do so that we can be able to improve. Because when we created this platform, um, I wanted it to both impact you guys, your technical skills and also your soft skills, and communication is one of the soft skills. Before I continue, I can see Lillian, you've joined in. You can just introduce yourself as introducing the topic for the day. Lillian?
Hi, Charity. How are you?
Fine, thank you.
Apologies for being late. But my name is Lillian Mumina. I'm a clinical nutritionist and one of the co-founders of the Nutritionist Corner. Of course, it's a very great topic. And let's see how we discuss on how to become great communicators. Back to you, Charity.
Thank you so much, Lillian, for joining us. Like I was telling our audience, you're not going to take a lot of time. Like hata ukisikia kwa sauti yangu, I'm so beat, but we told ourselves you're going to be consistent and we want these live discussions to pick up. So just to introduce the topic for the day, and communication is one of the most underrated, for me, I feel like it's one of the most underrated yet powerful skills in healthcare, leadership, policy. Many professionals spend years mastering technical knowledge, and I know if you've tuned in, you're very vast when it comes to technical side of nutrition, but very little time is put in when it comes to how to communicate effectively, especially the knowledge you guys have. And I want this topic to be very interactive. Like I was saying, please leave in the comment section what's your pros and cons when it comes to your communication skills, because in healthcare, communication affects your patient trust if you are working in the clinical setup or if you're working in your own private setup. Adherence to treatment, how you communicate will impact how your patient or your client is going to adhere to the management or treatment you have for them. Teamwork, if you're in a healthcare setup, of course, you're going to be in a team. Leadership, advocacy, I know Lillian is in that platform. Will tell us more about that. Professional visibility. Communication is very key when it comes to visibility, community impact, health outcomes. So good communication can save lives. That's why it's very, very important to work on your communication skills, because poor communication can create confusion, mistrust, misinformation, and that will lead to poor outcomes. So this conversation is very, very important because many professionals are very knowledgeable. We're here, we are very knowledgeable, but sometimes we struggle to be heard in a space. Um, Influence behavior change, speak confidently. Sometimes you might have something to say, but mi niko na hiyo shida pia, the trembling of the voice, but I feel like I've been working on my communication skills, so I feel like the trembling na kutetemeka imeanza kudidimia. Educate patients effectively, in the hospital, in your own private setup, in social media, digital content creation, and then communicate online professionally. Like I said, there's a different or a thin line between quack and you as a nutritionist, and all that is how you communicate and also build authority and trust. And communication is not just simply talking, it is clarity, empathy, listening, your influence, understanding people, and also delivering information intentionally. So that's just a brief introduction on why we settled on this topic. I don't know if Lillian, you have anything else to add before we get to the segments that you're going to discuss in today's live. Lillian?
You've done a very good introduction of what is communication and why we're actually having this conversation. So I definitely have nothing else to add. Let's just get into it. Tusikae sana.
It's okay, I do understand because I hope you'll be able to communicate. Let me use that effectively. Yeah. So we're going to look at why communication matters in healthcare. So Lilian, I would love for you to take us through this section, why communication matters in healthcare.
I hope hata kama visibility ama the video, the room is not well lit. I hope I'm still being seen. So basically, I usually say that if you cannot communicate, you cannot create any form of impact, And as healthcare workers, when you are training, when you get into any course that requires for you to work with people, your main goal is basically to create impact, a positive impact, and talk to people or foster change. But you see, if you cannot communicate, you cannot reach people and you cannot change anything. For you to be able to change or create a reaction or an action, or actually to just trigger something to happen, you have to be a great communicator. And when it comes to health, of course, when it comes to changing or to actually dealing with the public health issues that we have currently in Kenya and in Africa, if you cannot communicate, you cannot steer conversations, you cannot steer curiosity. Sometimes your goal, when you effectively communicate, your goal is to make people curious, to want to act more, or to actually want to look into why is it that we're having these problems in health in Kenya, what is missing, what are the gaps, and such and such. So I think that is the baseline of why we need to have good communication skills as healthcare workers, because we are the advocates of the public. Any healthcare worker or any healthcare professional out there, you are not just working, you're advocating for that Kenyan who is not able to advocate for themselves to ensure that they are getting the good services, the quality healthcare that we deserve. So if you fail at communicating at your particular station, or if you fail to even ensure that things are running well, then you're going to fail a Kenyan. I think that is the baseline of why we need to have good communication skills. Charity.
Thank you so much, Lillian, for those points. So let me see if we've missed. She's talked about building trust and also communication influences health outcome, like I talked about in the introductory part. Um, because poor communication, especially, let me give you an example. If you're in a healthcare setup, you're working in a team. That team will consist of a doctor, a nurse, and the rest. So you have to look at the medication, how the patient is being fed, how, just all this interaction when it comes to nutrition and the medical assets. So if there's poor communication, it can lead to medical errors or medication errors, poor adherence, misunderstanding, especially when it comes to giving out instructions, fear and stigma, delayed care, and just patient dissatisfaction. So I feel like that is also one of the reasons why communication matters in healthcare. Um, I wanted Lillian to, I don't know, Lillian, if you are able to talk about communication as a leadership tool, because you're in the advocacy space. I would really love for you to take us through communication as a leadership tool. Just a few words when it comes to that so that we don't take much of the time. Lillian, if you're in a position to.
Okay. You will just have to work with my background. I hope it's not noising too much, because again, that is part of bad communication. But in as much as you're trying to be perfect in everything that you do, we have to acknowledge that life happens and things are happening. Anyway, so when it comes to leadership, of course, I believe, or it's a fact, that if you cannot communicate, you cannot get through any person. And what makes you a leader? What makes you a leader? The people you're leading. So if you cannot you cannot create influence or impact, who will you lead? People follow, or people allow, or people want to be led by individuals who can create impact, who can create influence, and who can definitely communicate. I believe that one of the tools, or one of the things that you must have if you want to create any form of impact as an individual, not just as a leader, if you want to do anything that you want to be remembered, is to have good communication skills. Because when you're able to communicate, you're able to. Charity, can we just skip to another section and then I'll get back to this one?
Yeah, please do to Daskia, but it's okay. We understand you take your time. Lillian will come back to talk about communication as a leadership tool because I feel like she's in a better position because she's in advocacy. If you follow her on her social media, she really advocates for nutrition, and also in the nutrition space. She's a treasurer of Kunad, so she's in a better position to talk about communication as a leadership tool. For Mimi, I will give you when it comes to digital platform, and that is something that we're going to look at in the next subsequent section. So in the second section, we're going to talk about is why many professionals struggles to communicate effectively. Because I know if you've tuned into this live, one way or another, you find yourself sometimes you really struggle when it comes to communication. I know if you went to KU, communication was part of a common unit we did in our first year. I don't know if that has changed. And we are technically trained because at first year, I remember my mind when I was in first year. Anyways, it's okay. That's just a story for another day. But some of these things, applying them, like the theory behind how to communicate effectively. But when it comes to actually applying it, you find that many of us struggle to communicate effectively. So I'm just going to mention a few common challenges as we give Lilian time to come back and talk about communication as a leadership too, because that one of the major angle I wanted to talk about in this particular live. So one is fear of judgment. For us, many professionals, especially in this digital platform, digital content, even in your healthcare setup, we have this fear of being judgment. You are being judged, I mean, fear of judgment. So you find that sometimes you might want to speak. Actually, I remember when I was in my ward round, and then you're selected to respond. Sometimes you just find that your voice is shaking, and then you struggle to articulate what you actually know, and some of you know. But because there's fear of judgment, you find like you're sounding very unintelligent. You find yourself making mistakes and replaying those mistakes later. Um, Public speaking, especially when the spotlight is just on you, sometimes there's just that fear of public speaking. And then when you're on these online platforms, you feel like you'll be criticized for what you say, so you choose to not just indulge. And then being visible. I don't know. I remember when I was starting my digital content journey, I used to have this fear of being visible, like people judge what I'm saying, but these days I got over it. So, in all that I've mentioned, it ends up creating an overthinking mindset. Like you're always overthinking perfectionism and overthinking what you're going to say. You choose to keep quiet and not say anything. And then you start having that lack of confidence or robotic communication. Like, unaona, like someone just knows we are amekram and a rehearse, yeah? So we're going to look at another challenge, why we struggle to communicate effectively is overuse of medical jargons. I feel like I mentioned this in one of my previous lives where we talked about social media and digital content creation. So many professionals, we often communicate to try and one up and impress our other peers, especially on this LinkedIn platform. So sometimes when you go to explain to a patient and you're overusing this medical jargons, you end up creating confusion, disconnect with your patient or your client, which can lead to intimidation, because me, if I don't understand what you're saying, I will feel intimidated, and then it will leave room for misinterpretation. So communication should prioritize clarity over complicity. I feel like we're going to look more about how to break down these big words into easy to understand language, so that your patients, people who are watching your content, will be able to understand. So, lack of emotional intelligence. So, sometimes you might find some professionals communicate facts without considering emotions, empathy, culture, the context of what you're talking about, literacy levels, fear, sometimes trauma. So patient needs information delivered with empathy. You know, if you sound robotic, sometimes they might not listen to you. Might leave that room thinking you've made an impact, but the patient was just like, "Aki, we are tamaliza sangapi," and then I don't even understand, and then they end up seeking help in another place or another person. So we're going to look at poor listening skills. So many people listen to respond. And I feel like that is also something, Lillian, we should really bring someone to talk about. Some of us listen to respond. We don't listen to understand. And I feel like that is one lesson I think life has been teaching me. You have to listen to understand before you respond, because listening helps professionals understand concern. Because if you listen to understand, you will not interject and jump in. You'll identify the barriers your client or the people who are tuning into your content have. You're able to build trust, because if I'm a good listener, just talk to someone who is a good listener. You'll feel good talking to them because they are listening to what you're saying. Yeah. And then you'll be able to tailor solution to match what you've listened, your client, your patient, or your teammates have said about what it's supposed to be done. Because communication, remember, guys, is a two-way street. I talk, you listen to understand. You talk, I listen to understand, so that we can be able to have a common understanding. So I feel like that's some of the common reasons why many professionals struggles to communicate effectively, according to me. So I don't know if, Lillian, you're able to now come back and tackle communication as a leadership tool, and then you can now contribute if you have any other struggle to communicate tips to audience. Lillian, I don't know if you are able to.
Yeah, I can address that, but I will not be on video. I hope that is okay.
No, it's okay. It's okay. We do understand. There's no pressure.
It's important. It's important. Life happens. Now, when it comes to being a leader, someone will tell you cannot lead yourself, you have to lead people. But I believe that for you to be a leader, you lead yourself first by understanding what it takes to be a leader. If you don't understand what it takes to be a leader, then you cannot lead others. And that is how fast you lead yourself. One of the things that, if you will check on, the day I was watching a memo of Winnie Mandela on Netflix, sorry, and one thing that is comes out really, really clear about Mandela, Ama Winnie, is that woman was a great communicator. She commanded authority. Of course, she had other attributes that might not have been so good. Maybe she was too aggressive. Maybe she was too compulsive. Maybe she was too reactive. But anytime she took that mic or she took that stage to talk, she talked with authority and people listened. So as a leader, you cannot afford not to have good communication skills. And how do you do that? First you need to understand that people you're leading are human. In this era where everything is technical, technology imeingia kila mahali, we want to talk to social media, we want to show up as creators, we want to attract a following. Some people might actually deviate from the thought or from the process of leadership and chase the things that maybe do not matter so much when it comes to leadership. So of course, as I said before, I was interrupted by this beautiful girl, is that for you to be a leader, you have to learn the importance or the thing or the not the thing, but the importance or the impact and the influence that you can get from having good communication. Then you can definitely work towards making sure that you engage yourself in platforms with individuals that you can actually mirror and become a good communicator. So of course, communication, being able, as Charity has said, being able to listen. If you mirror the greatest, one of the greatest politicians, or you see, when people might think that our president, Dr. William Ruto, might people might say all the negative things about him, but one thing that comes out really clear about that guy is that he's a great communicator. When he takes that stage, even if he's lying, you will listen to his lies and you will buy them. That is why people have been complaining that we have been lied to for the longest time, because he mastered the art of connecting with humans through talking, you know. And in this era where people are all over social media, of course, if you master the art of one-on-one conversations or having conversations, even if you're doing like social media or online, having conversations with people, then you have mastered the art of influence and impact. That is what most people do not understand. I am still mastering it myself because I want to be impactful and I want to have influence and I want to be a leader that is remembered for something, not just a name or a pretty face or something like that, you know. So for you to have that, you have to have communication skills. And for leaders who don't have communication skills, of course, you might have the position, you might have the authority, but you will lack the influence and the impact. Because when you cannot get through to people, when you cannot understand the problems they're actually struggling with, their issues, whatever is keeping them at night, awake at night, then you will not be able to actually now connect with them emotionally. And all this comes down, or actually, this is triggered by good communication. How are you addressing their issues? How are you able to get them to talk to you about their issues? You know, you can have a lot of people with a lot of issues, but because your leadership style is authoritative, people are not able to get to you because they're scared of even airing their issues. And then you end up having a lot of unfinished business. If it's in a management place in work, you end up having a lot of complications here and there that could have been resolved with a simple conversation, like for 5 minutes over tea or over even lunch. You have a sit down with your manager, you talk to them, or you even, as a manager, you have a sit down with your subordinates and talk to them about whatever it is that might be affecting their performance, the way they are dealing with issues. You know, as a leader, you cannot afford to just be able to get to people. And of course, we get people through communication. So communication in leadership is very important. And when it lacks, the gaps are felt. The leadership gaps will be felt. You'll have positions with people, but the impact and the influence will not be felt, which is very sad. It is happening in our nutrition space, which is quite unfortunate, but we need to improve. I'm not saying someone else, I've said we, all of us, me included, we need to improve. We need to be better leaders. We need to be leaders who are emotionally intelligent. We need to be leaders who listen, leaders who communicate, leaders who understand our people's pain points. That is basically how we are going to create and foster change in nutrition. And of course, in advocacy, as we say, advocacy, you don't need to, as Charity has said, you don't need a lot of jargon, you don't need a lot of complications, just need to learn how to communicate and get into the mind of the decision makers. That is all you need to do to create change in advocacy. If you come across a politician, or if you come across an influential person, let's say you come through a county director somewhere, you come through a chair somewhere, and then you want to have a conversation, you want to be included in something, you don't need, you will not need a lot of complicated or even statistics and such and such. You'll just need to make sure that you now actualize your human side of communication. Now make sure that you get to them, be memorable, and all that you do through having good communication skills. Of course, you can be memorable in so many other ways. You can be memorable in creating chaos, which is still okay. There are other aspects of advocacy that require that. You can be memorable in being calm or being the peace in the room. You can be memorable in being the human connection, all that. But you definitely, the bottom line of everything, especially when it comes to advocacy, is communication. I hope I have addressed what you wanted me to address, Charity. We are breastfeeding.
Okay, dear. Yes, you have. You've touched a lot on communication as a tool, a leadership tool, and I hope if you're smart enough and you've tuned in, you've taken your pen and your paper, and you're writing, especially if you want to get into the advocacy leadership niche, please, you can apply what Lillian has talked about. So Lillian, I don't know if you had anything to add on why many professionals struggle to communicate effectively, something that I've left out.
No, you have actually addressed it well, like the fact that people lack the basic communication skills. When you say that tukiwa first year, we actually taught about communication. Even when you go further, when you go to do these courses or advancing courses, you will still learn about communication, but people still fail to actually, what is the word? Implement what they have learned. And it's quite unfortunate because basics, when you think about communication, or what it means to communicate, is basically passing information from one person to the interested party. It seems so simple on paper, and it can be very simple, but you see, as you said, we are human. We will overthink. You'll think, oh my God, am I good enough? Do I have the right words? Have I crammed this enough? Such barriers, when you put them in your mind, they definitely affect how you communicate, and they will be felt by your interested party, and you'll come out not as confident. Of course, as a professional, for you to be confident in whatever you're doing, you can have all the technical expertise that you have said, as you have said, Charity. But if you cannot get through to people, you cannot. There's no confidence there. The I don't want to say the imposter syndrome, because it's not imposter. Sometimes we put it in our mind that yenyewe I don't know more, and you'll be shocked at how much people do not know out here. The basic things that you think that, oh my God, I need to learn more, I need to know more, I need to understand more before I can be able to talk more. You'll be shocked at how little people know. So when you know that, even like I don't want to sound, but anytime I'm speaking, I usually put it in my head, I'm the master of this conversation. You see, I'm the one who's steering this conversation. So I will make sure that I allow my mind to wander and to collect whatever I have picked about the same topic. So when I do that, I will not be able, sitajiwekea hizo bottlenecks kwa akili that yenyewe I am not good enough, I have not crammed enough, I have not gotten the right words, I have not addressed the right person in that room. And sometimes when you're doing, let's say you're in a professional, let's say you're doing consultations, before the end of your conversations or before your end of your consultation, you should have one goal. And that one goal is to make sure that your client or your patient hears you. Hears what you have to say. They hear you, then they will understand. You know what? Some of us want to make sure that our professionals or our clients or our patients know that we are good professionals. So unakuja na jargons venye umesema, unakuja na complicated ways of doing things. You're just complicating your client's life for nothing. And that will make that client leave you, and you will lose that consultation money, because the next time they'll go to someone who is able to tone down or go down to where their understanding level is. So I think, in as much as, yes, we want to be impactful, there are different areas of nutrition that we can create impact. As you have said, we have those in the clinical field, we have those in the community levels, we have those in social media, advocacy, or anywhere that you want to be. But the goal that you should be having as an individual or as a professional is to make sure that you're heard. And when you're going to be heard, you have to make sure that you know how to talk. How do you talk? You don't know how to talk by knowing English. That is not talking. You don't know how to talk by understanding the technical jargons, the hard things. No, that is not communicating. You know how to talk by making sure now that you can translate whatever you know into a way that, or in such a way that the person that you actually target to talk to will be able to understand you or to hear you. And remember that Mumina said that I need to do this, I need to understand this. And that is basically the communication. So I think when it comes to challenges that professionals face, I believe one of the biggest challenges really in the mind, that you think that I'm not good enough. And I think as nutritionists, we have that issue. And it's quite unfortunate because when you're in these spaces, other people will try to make sure that you maintain that, and it can be difficult, especially if you're struggling with other things in life. You can actually find yourself believing that your nutritionists are not good enough. But I want to reassure you guys that we are good, and we are good enough. And if we believe in ourselves, we can actually make sure that now we create impact in the profession of public health. And we do that through the power of communication. When you get that 5 minutes, when you go to a facility or we go into advocacy session, or you go into a discussion or a meeting or something that has anyone that can actually now create impact and they have influence, then how you talk to them can make all the difference in nutrition. I don't know if Charity, that is okay.
Yes, Lillian, thank you for adding that. Um, I love the way you said sometimes it's all in our mind. Or sometimes you might have all you need, but kifika hapo kila kitu inapotea, and then you start all the faces looking at you. Said you're giving a health talk, all those faces looking at you, mothers breastfeeding, mothers tired, they're all looking at you and you have to communicate. So it's very, very important to just on those skills. Like just it's something that just takes an hour if you go online and find this. I think I'll look for resources that we can share on our WhatsApp group that we usually have on just how to find those courses so that you can hone those skills. Because sometimes you might have a deal and you end up losing it because of how you communicating. And if you overcome those challenges that we've talked about, you can be able to communicate effectively, to be heard, and also to create impact to your teammates, to your clients, and to your patients. So Lilian, you're going to go to the third section. Macho naona inaanza kukataa. That's why I've switched off the camera. So we're going to look at how to prepare before communicating. So Lillian, I don't know if you can take this or should I? How to prepare before communicating?
We can
Like
take it
any
both.
helpful tips that you can share to our audience from your own experience? How do you prepare before you come and because you're a very good communicator.
Let me tell you, people tell me that, by the way, and I'm like, are you sure? Of course, I second guess myself, but one thing I was told by my teacher when I was in Form 3, third form, she told us that people will listen to you, or people will take you how you want them to take you. Unaona? If I want you to listen to me as a good communicator, you will listen to me as a good communicator. If I want to come out as confident, if I want to come out as shy, if I want to come out like I don't even understand whatever is happening in the room. If you have interacted with me, you know sometimes I can just go into a room and just be like that person who does not understand why she's there, because that is what I had planned when I left the house, that is how I want to be seen today, you know. So I think before you prepare for anything that you want to, let's say like you have a public speaking engagement, you've been invited to an engagement, you have been invited into a discussion, you're doing a health talk, you're doing wellness consultation, you have a consultation with a mom, a diabetic patient, or someone struggling. Then before you get in, remember that you have the power of how that person is going to view you. That is what I usually tell myself. And if now, and as I told you earlier, if I tell myself that I am the master of this conversation, hata nikifika hapo ni kila kitu ipotee, of course, before you get into something, before you get into that podium, before you get into that discussion, before you get into that room, please have some background information of what you're going to talk about. Isn't it too up? Of course, it's okay to have an open mind, a blank mind, so that you can get everything, but at least have something that you can also give. Send up ukiwa tu like hata kama your goal is to appear like you don't know anything, have something that you can still talk, like one or two things that people will remember. The Nyamomina was in this room and she did this and this. That is very important. So of course you need to also, after once you've established that I want to be confident today, I want to make sure that mama changes her dietary habits. I want to make sure that this client does not have relapse when it comes to her sugars control and that. I want to make sure that this mother who's pregnant does not have issues with her blood pressure. That is your goal. When you go there, have that. And then you make sure that now you read and understand the nitty gritties of blood pressure. Of course, whatever surrounds blood pressure, other things that are associated with that blood pressure. Because if you go into a conversation and you think the only thing that you have carried is that you're the master of the conversation, and you've not done research, you've not done any groundwork, any background research and such, of course you will come out as, I don't want to use the word stupid, but you come out as dumb. So you need to make sure that when you're going there, you also do your homework, do your thorough research, and make sure that you understand the topic at hand. And then when you're there, remember, it's human nature. Everyone is usually shaking. Even your most confident speakers that you think people are so confident, people shake at some minute. But the minute that now you get in, your first like 30 seconds are going to set the stage of how you're going to be. And if you blunder, it's still okay. You can still breathe in. It's a human conversation, and ask for, like, you can even request the audience to stand up, stretch as you recompose your thoughts, And then when they stand up, you're trying to recompose your thoughts. I usually have this thing where I will focus on one person, or like in a room. When you're doing a presentation or a discussion in a room, you have to make sure that you're engaging all the corners. Of course, when it comes to communication, it's not about just how you're speaking. There are the cues, the verbal and the non-verbal cues. There are emotions, how you're showing up, your movements. So you have to make sure that you're engaging the whole room, especially if it's a physical engagement. Now, how do you do this? I usually spot friendly faces. You don't want to spot someone who will start looking at you and giving you nightmares when you're standing there. Everything will disappear. So you spot friendly or colorful faces in each corner, front, back, middle, the back, and such. And then now when you're having conversation, you focus on having the conversation with them. Now, if I spot you, Charity, and you're on my far left, of course, when I look at you, everyone on that far left will feel the eye contact. And then I don't know if this is possible with everyone, but I think it is. When I focus on you and whatever I'm saying and my thought of my school of thought, I will not be able to, of course, I'll see whatever is happening around, but it will not be distracting me as much as if I did not identify someone and actually focus on it. And then now, of course, you need to also know who is going to be in the room for you to be able to engage. Of course, let's say you're talking to influential people, like you're talking to politicians, you're talking to leaders, you're talking to health managers, you're talking to county directors and such. Of course, when you're discussing with such, your conversation will be different. When you know your audience, you're going to have a different tone, a different presentation style, different dressing, and even like how you show up, how you engage with totally different. So you cannot go into, let's say, a forum that is engaging teenagers. Suits are good, and you are in all suits. It's okay to have suits, but it's also good to make sure that they feel like they can relate to you. Let them feel. Of course, some people want to be felt like, I'm superior. This is what will happen. Of course, it depends on what you want to create. You can decide, I want to now trigger curiosity. I want to make people want to get to where I am. So you can dress up in a suit, show up with your laptops, with everything, all professional and all that. But if you want to get to them, like you want to them to relate, of course, if it's teenagers, you'll have to dress down kidogo so that they can feel relatable. So of course, when you understand your audience, when you fail to understand your audience, even in leadership, anyone that you're leading, if you don't understand their pain points, like itakuwa shida, because what conversation are you going to have with those people when you're telling them that I am going to do this and this? The unfortunate bit about the thing with leadership, you have to create hope. And how do you create hope? You create hope by understanding what your people actually are suffering from and what they actually need. And then you try and come up with a actionable solution or idea that can actually now give them the results that they actually need. So of course you must understand who you're talking to. And of course, if it's online, if it's on a webinar, of course, whatever was happening in my background should not be happening, especially if you're the speaker. You should have as minimal background noises as possible. You should be seated where you're comfortable, not today you will have to excuse me. but you should be but this is what I am comfortable with today. Sometimes life happens and things go the way they do, and we move on. So you should be as comfortable as you can so that you are able to deliver as best as you can. I think that's Charity, you can add more. Charity?
Yes, Lillian, I'm here. So thank you so much for taking us through that section, because I feel like, Lillian, sometimes you might have all that, but kuna tu those jitters that come before you speak. I feel like those are the things you can work at. Thank you for that. And I feel like you've also touched on being clear on your goal. So you have to have an intention of why you're communicating. Ask yourself, am I educating? Am I encouraging my audience? Am I persuading them? Am I clarifying something? Am I correcting a misinformation? Or is it an inspiration? So I feel like sometimes without clarity, because for me, if I communicate without clarity, I will digress, and sometimes when you digress, you end up losing your train of thought. So I don't know if Leon touched on simplifying your message. This is something I touched on when I was introducing and talked about some ways we struggle to communicate. So this is something I think you, Lillian, made me privy to. People remember simple language. People remember stories. That's why they, like Lillian said, the president, number story. Like people remember those stories, relatable examples, like I've mastered the pain point. Like maybe Lillian is talking to us, and my pain point is communication as a leadership tool. My pain point iko hapo. So when she mentioned such stories and relatable examples, I will stick with the message. Visual explanation. For me, love slides, and I love making my slides. Oh, so that you can be able to get my point, and also practical advice. Or you have to tell people something that is practical, like reality. Yeah. So good communicators simplify complex topics without losing the accuracy. Yeah. So this is just something for me, because before I started on this, like if you had met me 1 year ago when we were just launching this platform, I used to struggle a lot with anxiety, and so I had to train myself to prepare emotionally. Right now ameziona macho zao kwa sababu like Lilia said, life happens, but we still have to show up and show out, so because we need this platform to keep on growing. So guys, like our page, this page, like it, follow, go to our YouTube, because I'm sure I've recorded this live is going to be on our YouTube channel. Subscribe. Go to Instagram, najua tumenyamaza. Follow us, TikTok, follow, because if you are going to communicate, people feel the anxiety. Like me, when I scare that, that kasauti kanatoka when someone is really stressed. Yeah. When you're talking in a boastful, arrogant way, people feel it and they'll switch off. If you're warm. Like I think when I attended the gala dinner, the insects, I think Grace alikuwa ana mention the insect man. Mpaka that he was so like amekwama kwa kichwa yangu. Because he was so warm, you know, confident. Like when you're confident, people know this one truly believe in what they're saying. And then when you're authentic, people also believe in what message you're going to pass across. So professionals should regulate emotions before communicating. So before you communicate, people prepare. Even the best of the best, they prepare. They prepare before they actually come to the stage and talk. When we were preparing this live, I was like, we're going to show people the power of communication. So we also have to showcase our personalities and just talk to you guys like we're talking to either older or younger sisters in this nutrition space, so that you can know how to prepare emotionally. And I feel like that is the most underrated skill, and something that I would want you guys to take out of this whole live. I can see Lillian is has dropped, but she'll be back. We're going to go to section 4. Yeah, so Lillian is back. Lillian, we're going to go to the fourth and the fifth section because I had dubbed the two sections the do's and the don'ts of effective communication. So I don't know if you can take the do's, I take the don'ts, or we can do the reverse, Lillian.
Okay, that's okay. That's okay. And maybe just before I was dropped, I'm using my phone because the situation in my other room is my living room is not very conducive. Now, how do you prepare and how to avoid the jitters or the anxiety? Um, what one thing I tell myself, as I told you, I usually you have to prepare it upper first. You prepare it and say that, and yeah, I'm going to address that audience and I'm going to make sure that once you understand your goal, I'm going to make sure that they understand. Maybe let's say your goal is you want to push for investing in nutrition and they've been ignoring it. You want to remind them why they should, or you want to talk about better eating habit or better lifestyle. That is your goal. So you go there and you prepare that. Of course, when you get to the stage, regardless of how well you prepared, of course, you're going to have those jitters. And when you get to that stage and things start sauti inapotea, as I said, it's okay to take a breather, breathe in. You can even like now engage your audience before even you start with the conversation. You can tell them a joke. You can tell them it's a beautiful morning. Wasalimie to break the ice or to make sure at least kuna your flowing modes to recollect your brain. And then now if it's not an exam, if it's not what, do not be scared of writing bullet points. Write bullet points about what you want to talk about. Have your phone or even have your projector or even have your notebook. And it even looks stylish and classy when you're walking around the podium and you have like a notebook that you have written things down that you want the people to actually get to. If you are doing slides, then make sure that you have short slides and make sure that again when you're communicating you're not reading, you're conversing, and this will actually make it easier for you. Once you hack the first 10 minutes, the next 40 will be easy. And then one thing I've come to notice, if I'm in a hurry to communicate to do something, let's say I have a presentation and I've set my mind that it's 30 minutes, it can stress the first few minutes because I'll be like, am I still in the pace? Am I okay? Am I okay? So what I usually do is I try as much as I can to when doing my preparation to make sure that I do the preparation with 30 minutes in mind. Ndio nikianza nisianze kushikwa na hiyo pressure. So of course, understand your time, understand what we have said. So another do that you're supposed to do, of course, you're supposed to make sure that you engage your audience and you listen. Communicating is not just about talking. See a monologue. You're not doing like a conversation with yourself on your YouTube channel like the way me and Charity we usually do. If you're doing that, that's okay. You can have your monologue and you need to still engage your audience even with your monologue because people will come and watch. Like I would ask, what is the one challenge that you have struggled with as an individual when it comes to communication? When you tell me or you tell us in the comment section, of course you're engaging with us. So you need to make sure that you're engaging your audience. Talk to them like you're talking to people. If it's social media, like name your camera or even name your phone. Ite to Charity's phone or Lillian's, gadget. Talk to Lillian's gadget. Don't talk to a camera. Like when you're talking to people, or when you imagine that you're talking to people, it's usually warm. It's usually warmer and it will actually make you um come out like you understand what you're doing, and it will make you more human because you don't want to again be like a robot. Authority has said we avoid to be as robots as much as we can. And then another do, of course, we talked about understanding your audience, your topic, your room, who you're talking to, and all that, what you are, your goal, and such and such. Those are basically the do's. And I think you also need to dress up the part. I think I talked about that. You need to dress up the part of whatever you're going to communicate on. If you need to suit up, suit up. If you need to dress down, dress down. Don't show up in galas, not with dresses. But you can if you don't do dresses, why not? But again, life happens sometimes. So sometimes it's okay to even do out once in a while. You can even use your dress code to be memorable, but do not be too drastic. You know, don't be too different. Inawezaleta shida. People will not listen to you if you go in, you're talking, you're in raggeds, and whatever you're saying is something that is supposed to be meaningful. Of course, now people have changed. Attitude may change kidogo when it comes to dressing, but there are still people who believe that for you to know what you're saying, you have to really dress up in a certain way. So if you're talking to such people, please bend to their roles once in a while. It won't hurt you. I think those are the do's of effective communication. And then we talked about not doing jargons unless you're talking to professionals. Of course, if you come to the webinars at the Nutritionist Corner, we are not simplifying words because we expect you as a professional to be familiar with such words. So when we talk about, or that's why even the Q&A exists, so that you can ask you, or you can ask about what you don't understand. But when a speaker comes in, they're speaking to professionals, they're speaking to nutritionists, dietitians, community health professionals, maybe physicians, clinical officers. So I don't expect them to have simplified too much because, again, the audience is different. But of course, when I am doing my consultation, of course, my language will be totally different. Those that I have consulted can actually confirm. I'm usually too different, it hurts. But sometimes it's necessary. So I think you can do the dons.
Okay, Lilia, so I'm just going to mention but a few because I feel like an hour is flying by. So na mwili imeanza kukataa, adulting. So the dawns of communication. For me, number one, I would love to tell you guys, don't use fear-based communication. I learned that the hard way. I remember when I was starting and umeingia kwa word, you want to show like you're using fear-based communication, unashtua watu because fear may create short-term compliance but often damages the trust because anajua tu anakuja kunigombanisha. So we have to learn how to educate, encourage, and empower as nutritionists. So don't dismiss your patients or your audience, talking down to people, like you're talking at, like, or talking down at someone, invalidating concern, especially when someone is asking you a question, assuming people understand. Sometimes they may give you this blank stare. So you're asking yourself, are they really understanding or not? So I feel like that's why most speakers or people who communicate, they ask, are we together, so that we know we are together, we don't just assume. Using shame or blame, especially when you're counseling or when you get someone who is not adhering to the management in place. Don't use shame or blame because it will create a distrust. So dismissive communication really reduces engagement. Have you ever spoken to someone you're communicating and they're just quiet? You don't know what they're thinking. You don't know if they've heard you. You don't know if they're listening. You don't know if they've understood. They're just looking at you. Sometimes you have to assess yourself to know, am I using dismissive communication, So don't overcomplicate information. Sometimes you can be too much in our heads because you've said don't use big terminologies, the jargons. You end up over explaining and oversimplifying until you lose the meaning of what you want to say. So just, I don't know. I think we'll also have a live where we'll just purely talk about how to simplify these terminologies and the jargons into easy to understand, and how to do that as a professional. Don't communicate without listening. Really big on being a good listener because sometimes we always want to hear ourselves talk, so we might not listen to the other person, and communication is a two-way street. So don't dominate engaging, because for me, remember those talks that I've attended, or the webinars where the speaker was engaging with us. So you should create room for questions, clarification, concerns, feedback. That's why at the corner during our Thursday webinars, we usually have just 30 minutes of you guys asking questions, seeking clarification, your concern and feedback before we end the session so that you can interact with our speaker. So I feel like those are just the few don'ts that are on my end. Lillian, I don't know if I've forgotten any don'ts when it comes to effective communication.
No, you've covered them very, very well. And I think if actually listens, I think we'll be doing well. We'll be doing well because you highlight vizuri sana. Actually, a part here oversimplifying. Sometimes I think I've also fallen in that category where I'm trying so much to oversimplify, and I end up like looking like a joke. So I think
Yeah.
we need to stop doing that. Eh? I think
But
you've
Lillian,
done
I
well.
feel like it's sometimes you get too stuck because you're like, I feel like this is a medical job. I need to simplify. And then you end up oversimplifying it until mtu anakuuliza, hiyo sasa ni nini ulikuwa unasema? Instead hata ungemwambia tu like this is just, I don't know, that is just something that is quite hard. And I feel like if you resonate with that, you can leave it in the comment section, be able to respond because I don't see any comments. So tuko huko kwa LinkedIn. So I hope there's interaction and engagement going on this live. If you watch it later, please leave it in the comment section. We really, really appreciate it. Ili najaribu yani hizi vitu naziangalia tumalize. So we have like our sixth session, section, which is communication in the digital era, and also communication and professional growth. So I don't know which one you will take. There's communication in the digital era and communication and professional growth. I
I'll
don't
do
know which.
professional growth because it's easier. Of course, another thing is pick the easiest things, the easiest stuff. I brought it from me.
So I'll just mention but a few of the points I have. Guys, mkiniona hapa ni kuandika. Like I don't think I end up I prepared this long time ago. This is easy hata. Anyways, communication in the digital era. And like I usually say in my digital content series, we are moving toward the digital era. Whether you like it or not, we have our phones kwa mikono, we are on social media, we have TikTok, we have LinkedIn, we have Instagram, we have Facebook, and a lot of people are becoming self-aware. So you'll find that our space is being crowded by wellness influencers, people who with their personal experiences. So you'll find that we are also upcoming as nutritionists. We are getting into the educator role and we're creating content online. So I feel like for me, I view social media as a plus because it has changed how us as healthcare professionals, healthcare workers are communicating. Yeah. Because through social media, you're able to create awareness, you're able to educate, you're able to access information as a layman person. You have something, you follow someone who's talking about PCOS. Lillian wrote something very, I wasn't even aware PCOS was has been turned to, is it PCOM? I wasn't even aware. When I saw it, I was like, you see, now I've gotten information that I wasn't privy of because of social media. There's advocacy opportunity. If you follow Lillian, you follow Amos, they're really in the advocacy. And if you attended the gala dinner, you will really see the power of advocacy, community building, professional visibility, especially on LinkedIn. To our 2,000 plus followers, we appreciate you guys for tuning in. But with social media, again, we have the risk of misinformation. Like I said, we are fighting with wellness influencers. So you find they say this because they have the numbers. You don't have the numbers, you have the knowledge, and sometimes social media risks a lot of misinformation, especially when it comes to nutrition. Fear-based content, or if you do this, do not eat this, do that. Me, I always just scroll past such. Oversimplification, especially people who don't really understand nutrition, and then lack of credibility. Lillian, during her advocacy, really talks about credibility and finding, like, just a regulator regulating how people are spreading the nutrition information. So I just mentioned but a few of what makes good online communication. So one, you have to have evidence-based information. Very, very important. Already, Lillian has told you guys to be a preview of the information you're going to share. So you have to read. Kama upendi kusoma, utashikiwa hapo. You have to read. Clarity. Yeah. I need to understand, like you need your message to be clear. Because ukiongea oversimplify, like so anasema nini? Simplicity. It's a double-edged sword. You simplify, but don't oversimplify until someone is confused because it's not even clear. Respectful engagement. I know Squeezy learn may improve. Squeezy don't even see that person. I think I muted the person because the person used to get to me when they are really spreading nutrition information and they're not nutritionists, and then you go to the comment section and you're so tempted to engage combatively. But these days I'm learning how to respectively engage. Consistency, which is something big and major, and then authenticity. So professionals should ask, is this accurate? Before you hit that blue post button, is this accurate? You've done your research, evidence based. Is this ethical, especially when you're going to share testimonials or you want to show your business is working, so you share people's stories and you've not asked for their permission. Very, very autonomy, very, very important. Is this helpful? Is it going to help my audience when we are posting this live or we're going live? Is it helping our audience? You have to ask yourself that. Is this understandable? Kama mimi mwenyewe sielewi, you have no right to put it out there, because kama we hauelewi, jua pia watu wenye wanakuangalia hawataelewa. So those are just a few tips I will share on what makes good online communication. So Lilian, I don't know if I've had yeah, I did back at the I've left something out because you're also in the content space. Maybe I've left something out that you can add. Unmute Lilian.
Oh, sorry. Now you've done well. Maybe what you could have maybe added your understand your gadgets, have audible, be audible, create authority or stamp authority without being too controlling. People hate that. And I've actually experienced with my two different channels. Like there's one that I'm just hata sinanga script, naongea tu. And I'm telling you that channel is gaining a lot of engagement. And there's this other one that I'm really, really working on making sure, sometimes, as you have said, you cannot oversimplify health education, health information. If you oversimplify it, you lose the meaning. So, of course, with Mumina Wellness, I'm here trying to make sure that people are still on the trajectory of healthy living and proper nutrition and advocacy and such. But of course, when you engage with people emotionally, they listen to you more. I know it can be very hard, especially when you're fighting with these influencers with numbers. I told you we stopped fighting. And I like the fact that you unfollowed them. Those people can give you pressure. Hi, una unfollow too, and then when you scam across their post once in a while, una download, una post, unaongea vibaya about it, alafu you move on with life, because we have to call them out. But again, when you're calling them out, we are hoping that we are also having nutritionists who are actually coming in to fill in the spaces. Because you see, the wellness space is so diverse. When we don't actually now target it ama hatutaki kuiongelelea, don't want to be seen on. I know editing is hard. I know pia create content sio rahisi. And someone might think, oh my God, we overthink so much, we over analyze our videos, our audios, but just record, just start. This creator I usually follow anasemanga, when you think about something, don't even wait don't plan for it for tomorrow. Start planning now, and then now tomorrow you execute. So if you think like you can talk about PCOS, like now the changes in definitions, they're definitely going to integrate better management, we are hoping, and we're really looking forward to making sure that it is also better managed in the country. But who's going to do that? It's me and you. We have to start talking about it more often. We've left the PCOS and the hormone things to actually wellness influencers. The same thing that is happening to gut health. Gut health, in as much as its own nutrition, we have left that space for wellness influencers. They're the ones who are talking about gut health in Kenya. So yes, we need to have nutritionists come up and talk about that, and that is okay. I think that's it. If we can do more, we do more, and we just stay confident and hit the record button. That's all it takes. You don't get better with practicing and with training, and you're not going to practice. You can attend all the digital marketing classes, you can attend all the video editing classes, but if you don't edit, you'll never be an editor. You'll never get into it. It's the same thing as driving. You can have a license, but if you're not driving, you're not a driver. You know. I'm talking about myself, which is very sad. So we need to improve.
So Lilian, on that, you can still continue with communication and professional growth, as we only have like one section left before we wind up. So you can just talk about communication and professional growth, share your experience, any helpful tips to anyone who is tuning in to listen to this live.
Yeah. Okay. Thank God you've done that. But of course, at the corner, we are going to, of course, we have lagged behind Kidogo, but you're going to have courses, short-term courses that you can take up to actually help you strengthen your skills as a professional. And I'm really hoping that these technical skills like communication, emotional intelligence, leadership are going to be part of it, where we're going to talk about how to be a good communicator, how to be emotionally intelligent, how to influence without trying, such things. Of course, if you're a professional, you have to now plan for engaging and improving your communication skills. I know we are taught the theoretical aspect of it. We are taught in school, we are taught in class. You go, you cram, you get an A, you come in second year, you do entrepreneurship, and there you get in also the bit of people skills, management here and there. You pass again, you pass the exams, you graduate from campus, then you get into the real world and you cannot even utter, you cannot even talk in front of an audience. Remember, your transcript say that you had an A in communication skills, yet you're not able to address an audience. Sorry about that. So I think the best way for you as a professional to actually now work on your communication skills, one, you have to be intentional about it. Plan for having it as part of your professional growth. If you will need to attend webinars, if you will need to attend seminars, if you need to attend workshops on communications, please do. And also interact with people who you think are great communicators and learn the nitty-gritties from them. There are things, even if you learn on the kwa kitabu haitaikusaidia juu until you see it or being practiced, it will not make sense. So practice, get to interact with someone who you think is confident and a great communicator. Talk to them about how you're struggling. You'll be shocked at how much people are willing to share out here for free. But if you don't reach out, you'll not learn. And of course, one of the things that I usually say as a professional, if you want to be, you can be a good nutritionist, but you cannot be a great nutritionist without good communication skills. You cannot be, you can be knowledgeable. Unaweza kuwa una contribute written, like you're writing perfectly, but you're not able to influence. Ukiitwa uongee. And the good thing with communicate, there's so many different styles. So if you're good with writing, you can also write. I'm not saying that you don't write. Please write. We need nutritionists to write. We need good nutritionists who can write, who can create stories, who can integrate real life experiences into nutrition education. That will be great. So please, let's do that. But again, you also need to make sure that, again, as you work on your writing skills, there's that confidence that comes with maybe your audience is growing, maybe you're getting more visibility and such. So try and make sure that you match that up with something else that you do not have. If you are struggling with public speaking, engage more with people who are doing public speaking, learn a thing or two from them. I'm not saying that you become a jack of all traders, but it's good to be able to communicate in different forums and different styles. It's necessary because one day you'll be writing for someone, especially if someone like Charity who's doing content, she's also doing social management, she's also doing public speaking like YouTube. She has to know the different aspects of communication, whether she likes it or not. So of course, she does public speaking, she does content writing, she does content management. All these are some of the things that she does. So of course, some of these skills no one will teach you. And even if you go online, until you're willing to practice them yourself, you'll never actually get them. So something like communication, you just have to be willing to do it. I talk to people about coming to the corner, and someone will come to me and tell me, "Oh, I'm scared, I'm shy." I know it's okay. And it's okay to be shy, it's okay to be scared, it's okay to suck. By the way, it's okay to even do a webinar and like, unashanga what happened. Just don't give up. Do another one and try and improve on what you did bad or you did wrong the previous time. We have now AI that is actually taking notes and actually is going to tell you the highlights. Maybe they can even you can even take that summary and actually copy it to ChatGPT and tell them to tell you what you can improve to make your next webinar good or great or better, and they'll have a breakdown of what you can do. Then you work on improving. You improve one step at a time. That is how growth happens. It doesn't happen at low umeamua una stammer, the next day you're a great public speaker. No, it happens when you practice. So let's be willing to practice as professionals. Let's be willing to talk and communicate as professionals, because unfortunately, as nutritionists, even if we go to attend those meetings, a good number of us will attend to fill seats and to get per DMs, which is so sad, because you cannot have a policy that is being passed that is going to affect nutrition na ina input ya nutritionist na kuna nutritionist kwa room. That is crazy. That is the most, I think that is the most irresponsible thing a professional can do, if you ask me. So if you are in those rooms, you have to learn how to now talk and represent people. And sometimes it's okay to say, I can't do this, is not my thing. Then we talk enda kuweka kwa technical team, like now to structure and even come up with ideas and the plans for these who are going to talk. It's okay, it's okay. If it's not your strength, it's okay to fall back. But I believe mina aminingi kila mtu anaweza ongea. If you're willing to talk, anyone can talk. If you just practice. Si rahisi, it's not easy. Actually, if you have like jitters, unashtuka, unaogopa, you get anxiety, kuna watu wanapatanga hata panic attacks when they're told to talk, they just stammer and mtu ananyamaza anaenda mute. I saw someone do that. It's still okay. You don't beat yourself up. The problem with people now in social media is that we are so eager, or we are so fast to tutaka tuangusha watu. We need to change also as individuals. You cannot unangoja tu mtu akwe ashindwe kuongea unamrecord so that you can go and laugh about it. That is so wrong an individual. So I think we also need to do better as a population. Need to be more human so that people can be willing to be more wrong and learn better. I hope we create that platform for you guys at the corner so that you can come in and learn and grow without your pressure. You have to be perfect. That's why our speakers are not perfect. We talk to people who are okay with talking. You can even come and we'll also coach you. Charity is here. She's so good with mentorship. Richard, even me, I'll mentor you when saidi vetu nimeshikana kidogo, but if you're patient enough, we can work on it. Back to you, Charity.
Thank you so much, Lillian, for highlighting that. Like Lillian said, we're going to be having short courses, and also you're going to be open to mentorship. I'm really big on mentorship. So you're going to also have a branch here at the corner where if you need any mentorship services, we'll be negotiating and see how we can help you when it comes to speaking, communication, content creation, and all that. So, Lillian, finally, you're going to section 8. Before now, we wind up with our final reflection, and we're going to now wind everything we've talked about by sharing practical tips for improving communication. I know I've mentioned but a few if you have been listening to us. So I'm just going to take you through very, very fast because what tulisema 1 hour, but unajua sasa tukianza kuongea we go on and on and on. So I'm just going to share mine, and then if I've forgotten some, Lillian will add more on it. So my first tip I share with you guys is practice consistently. Like communication, like Lillian said, improve through repetition. And that is the tip I wanted to share with you guys. For me, this thing behind me is a mirror. I stand on this mirror when I'm going to do a webinar, any presentation. I stand in front of this mirror and I practice. I practice the flow of the conversation. I practice, even if I have to have a script to jot down points to not, so that I don't forget, I do it. That is just a perfectionist kind of thing. But for me, I practice. I practice. Public speaking, I have been practicing. That's why on my YouTube, my formats are usually presentation style because I am practicing and training myself to do that. Also, when it comes to creating content, especially if you're getting into the digital platform, discussion, going to a forum, like Lillian said, presentation, counseling session, you have to keep on practicing. Those people didn't just wake up one day and they practice and practice, and sometimes it's true, practice makes perfect. Learn to simplify information. Simplify, not oversimplify. Explain complex health topics as if speaking to, let me say, like we're having an adolescent, you'll talk to them, especially the Gen Zs, you'll talk to them differently, like the way you talk to a geriatric patient. You'll not talk to them the same. So you have to know your audience and how you're going to simplify and put yourself in their shoes and know how to communicate with them. You know, observe great communicators. um Learn from the speakers, how their speaking style, their presentation style. The leaders, look at how they, some people are very good orators, look at how they command the audience. Educators, counselors, moderators, look at how they do their thing and learn from them. Observe their tone, their structure, their confidence, their gestures, the engagement, how they're engaging with their audience, storytelling, are they sharing good stories that relate to the topic, ama wana digress wanaenda to other things. So you have to look at them, observe them, and then try to pick one or two things that will work for you. Don't copy, because we all can't be the same. Just pick what works for you and also continue practicing, like I said in the first point. Build confidence through preparation. Guys, prepare. At a live with the short notice, with the whatever is happening, we prepared to have this live for you guys, because for me, as a tip, it helps reduce my anxiety before speaking. I organize my thoughts, that's why I have them written down. I practice key points, that's why I mention a point and then I expound on it. And that is how I also do my presentation. Anticipate questions, you know. I always ask myself 5 questions that I would ask if I was the audience, and then understand your audience. Because if you're called to be a speaker, you're going to be called to a webinar, you're going to go for a TV interview, you're going to share your thoughts, you're going to be given a list of what is needed and what you and who you're going to speak with. So if you're being called for a nutrition education session, let's say in a company that is 30 to dominated by 30 to 40-year-old, so you will create your presentation around those age groups, their pain point, what the you anticipate the questions they will ask. I'm busy, where can I get easy to do meal plans? So that's anticipate such question, you know. And if you understand your audience, you're able to help their pain points. Yeah. So I feel like that's just the few tips I have on my end, Lilian. I don't know if I've forgotten any tip you can add, being you're also good at communication that I've forgotten you can add. I know to mention but a few. Lilian?
No, Mama, we you have exhausted by the we have actually you have done a good summary, which is good. And yeah, I think also venye teacher iti amesema practice makes perfect. And if you struggle with confidence, remember that if you hack communication, you're one step, like umeingia kwa confidence. So if you struggle with confidence, learn to communicate. Like go through what we have talked about today, try and practice it, and then once you're able to do it well, trust me, confidence is equals to communication. You can't tell me otherwise, because you can be confident in working, but of course in healthcare confidence is na communication zinaendana hivi mbili zote pamoja. So learn how to communicate if you struggle with confidence. If you want to create impact, learn how to communicate. If you want to create influence, learn how to communicate. If you want to be remembered as a good leader or as an individual, learn how to communicate and master it. Master it vizuri sana and just be good. So
Thank you
just be
so much,
good
Lilian.
and all
This
will be
has been
well.
fun. I didn't know what to expect because yeah, uchovu and life happening, but this has really been a good session, and I hope this live has made a difference. You've now seen the power of communication in healthcare, and you also shared more when it comes to how to be heard. And like Lillian said, when you're a good communicator, I'm sure you'll create an impact and you'll make an impact, because the people I've come across and they were really good communicators. They really left something in me that ignited now my passion for wanting to do more and be more, the motivation speaker. So Lillian, just few words before we wind up. Pia mi nikapumzike kidogo.
From me, I will say, let's avoid the distractions, the loud noises. The loud noises and the distractions can look like, oh, I'm not good enough, or I can't talk to people, or let's avoid those. Let's try as much as we can to silence them. Sometimes they can be so loud, but they can be also be corrected with, I can do this, I got this. So every time that you're called in or someone presents an opportunity, or you see an opportunity that you can actually talk, and this sauti inakwambia ati, Momina, this is not for you. Please remember that the only limit is in your head. Easy motivation, easy facts, by the way. The only limit is in your head. So wetu jiambie you can do it. Na ujikaze, you practice, and don't be scared of being not so good, because I will not say, if you try, you're not bad. Don't be scared of not being perfect. No one is perfect. Even your perfect role models when it comes to communications and public speaking and confidence and such are still struggling with something. But mtu ana struggle na sauti, like I have a very tiny voice, I have to always have a mic. Unaona, bila mic sitoboi. I will shout, but it will not, it can help, but it doesn't really help do much. So of course we all have insecurities, we all have issues that we are battling with. So do not be scared to even try. And as a nutritionist professional, I am really hoping that you're going to see a surge of better communicators, a surge of more confident professionals taking up the spaces of nutrition. When it comes to advocacy, they are talking about investing, prioritizing, and just making sure that nutrition is visible. We're also talking about wellness. Let's say kama ni PCOS, Charity is talking about diabetes, others, Eunice is talking about mothers and child. We have Joyce talking about metabolic health. We have, you can do all. You can choose a niche and something that interests you, and then you do it. And then you can also make money out of it. If you start making money out of it, it becomes interesting. So just have your goal. The goal should not be money alone, because saa zingine pesa takes time, but have a goal, like I want to educate, I want to change, I want to create impact, I want to be visible. Don't just be seen, be visible, be memorable. And I think one of the ways that you can achieve all that, or a step that will actually help you, is if you become a good communicator. So learn, practice, practice, practice. And you see, people are weird. That's why I told you, Charity, the other day. That's why only 1% of people lead. When you have such webinars or research conversations, the turnout is usually low, because people think that such skills are not necessary. But if you want to be great in life, you cannot just have the technical expertise of nutrition and dietetics peke yake. You have to learn how to talk, how to communicate it, and how to talk about it, that you can be influential and impactful and probably be a leader. People lead, or people follow people they actually feel like they can actually influence and impact them or do something for them. So if all that you have is technical expertise, how will people know what you can do for them? Let's learn how to communicate. Charity, back to you.
Thank you so much, Lillian, for those wonderful words. And I agree with you. Every time you guys we have a webinar, I feel like that's why, Lillian, I love that we've taken this to this LinkedIn live discussion, because this video will be out here and you guys can come back and rewatch if you happen to change your mind. But thank you so much for tuning in. For me, I will go with what Lilian has said, because I think you've spoken at length and you've not left anything out. If you've done, please leave it in the comment section of this live. When we find time, we'll be able to respond to them. And thank you so much for tuning in. This has been a lovely session, and I've been your semi-host and semi-moderator, because I'm here with my co-founder and partner, Lillian. We thank you so much for your support. The 2,000 plus followers. Keep on liking this page, follow, connect. This is also a networking platform. If you have anything, you want to be a speaker, we are open. I usually share a poster with our email address, with our phone numbers. Reach me out on WhatsApp. If I have time, I'll respond on our email. We'll also respond to you. Just send your CV or something that you're interested in, because we have to have credibility and for people we bring on our platform. So if you want to be a guest speaker, feel free to reach out. So mi ni hayo tu, nitaacha kuongea sana Lilian. I beg to take a rest. This has been nice. Thank you so much. And we'll do this next time. We'll talk about something else. Yeah.
Yeah, that was nice. Actually, it's better than I thought. With the chaos that was happening behind the scenes, we have done well. Have a lovely day.
You too, guys. Bye. Thank you so much. Next Thursday, we'll be having a webinar session. So be on the lookout. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. I'm going to post this live immediately we are done. So go and watch it and rewatch it and rewatch it and subscribe. Yeah. So bye.
Next Thursday, we are going to talk about NICU. So you join in, we talk about how to take care of the small babies.
Yeah.
Our speaker is ready.
We'll be posting more on this page. So please be on the lookout. So Lilian, thank you and be blessed.
Okay, bye, Mama.